man whose name is on the lips of everyone in town. You read about him every day, you've heard his name, no doubt. And if he ever sneezes, they will get an extra out for Mr. Dooley, for Mr. Dooley. The greatest man the country ever knew, quite diplomatic and democratic, is Mr. Dooley, Dooley, Dooley,
Nothing. Nothing in the paper again. William Jennings Bryan and some piffle on the Founding Fathers. John D. Rockefeller in court again. McKinley on the campaign. More railroads buying up more power, more poverty in the midst of prosperity. What am I supposed to make out of that? Always he does this to me just before deadline. Sits there across the table from me with his arms folded and that wee Irish smirk on his face, saying nothing, daring me to make him talk. Once he gets started, of course, you can't shut him up. But McAuliffe doesn't get it. Make him talk, he says, as if I'm some editorial Madame Blavatsky, countering bartenders with a newspaper and a shot glass. You want Dooley to talk, you have to give him something to talk about. And if no news is good news, this is the best news we've had in over a month. It was McAuliffe's fault in the first place. He offered me an extra $10 a week to come up with a column for the Sunday edition. What was I to write about? He didn't care. Except just maybe throwing some local color. Oh, and maybe some local politics. Oh, and one more thing, he says. Make sure it's funny. He must have known I couldn't resist the challenge, or the $10. As the great philosopher himself once said, if you turn up the gas in the darkest heart, you'll always find it had a good sound reason for the worst things it done. Like needing the money. Or saving mankind. Or needing the money. But now for a subject. Chicago in the 90s. Brazen corruption, thousands of homeless people crowding into public buildings to keep warm, seats for sale on the city council, sprawling slums, pollution, sweatshops, public land given away for private use. Nothing newsworthy at all. I was still young enough to think that a reporter's obligation was to expose sham and corruption, just old enough to suspect that when he did, no one would care. And right about the time I was wishing I was dead, I dropped into McGarry's on Dearborn Street. Reporters went there for inspiration. The Tribune and the Post had kind of ancillary offices in McGarry's back room, where half the copy of the daily papers was written between standing rounds, war stories, and dice games. McGarry was a large Roscommon man of sententious speech who seldom spoke, but this time he was standing behind the bar with a newspaper, reading something about the death of Jay Gould. I see me old friend Jay Gould is dead. Jay Gould is dead. Vanderbilt's dead. Mike Casey's dead. And none of them took his money with him. Jay Gould had no fun in life. Now where is he? Dumped in a hole. Or put up in a tomb on a shelf like a jar of pickles. And he's left his son only $15 million to get through the winter on. Many's a night that poor lad'll lie awake, wondering if what Shakespeare says is true. It is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of one of them cambric needles than for a rich man to get into heaven. I wrote it down the way I heard it. Some of it. And made up the rest. I put it down as local color, a conversation overheard at a bar. And to disguise McGarry's identity, I called him McNeary. I became McNeary's chronicler, writing McNeary's opinions on the Great Exposition, local elections, other matters. These pieces became so popular so quickly that in no time at all, I was called on the carpet. Scene in the managing editor's office. Cornelius McAuliffe presiding. Look, Don, I know McNeary's really McGarry. The whole staff knows it's McGarry. All the boys in the composing room know it's McGarry. Everybody who knows McGarry knows it's McGarry. Even McGarry knows it's McGarry. And you know what? He doesn't like it. Oh, well, I was hoping he'd enjoy the notoriety. People all over town reading him out loud, quoting him, putting on bartenders' aprons and being him. He doesn't like it. Oh, well, that could explain why he hasn't spoken to me in over a week, except once. What'd he say? Well, he pointed a finger at me and said, You can't put printer's ink on me with impunity. You have to understand the seriousness of this, Dunne. Nobody from this paper can get a drink at McGarry's till it stops. Nobody, including the man upstairs. God? Jack Walsh, the publisher. Yes, God. Well, fine, I'll give it up. What? Why do you want to give it up? Well, you just said, you don't mean you want to go back to writing straight editorials. Well, I thought it was my job to write editorial opinion. We don't want to hear your opinions, we want to hear his. But they are his, mine. Look, Dunne. I think you tapped a gold mine here. Now, if you said some things in plain English, you could be shot or sued. But now, a funny little Irishman can say whatever he likes. You could, now I don't want to encourage this, mind you, but you could actually sometimes tell the truth. We could skewer the crooks, and they'd have to smile and take it because it's all meant in fun. Look, Jack's agreeable. Just change the name of the bartender in the bar. Move it as far away from McGarry's as you can. Somewhere beyond the reach of civilization. Bridgeport? Perfect. Well, fine, I'll send McNeary back to Ireland. Good lad, but you'll need a replacement for him. Oh, I already have one. Dooley. Why Dooley? It's a name I saw on a sign down on Archer Avenue. Archie Road, they call it down there. Irish neighborhood. There's hundreds of them. Dooley's on every corner. Fine, says the managing editor. Now, let's go down to McGarry's and have a drink to Mr. Dooley. Can you imagine? There are people now all over the country reading Mr. Dooley aloud to their friends, reciting him in elocutionary exercises. Ham actors putting on glasses and aprons and waving newspapers around in taverns all over America. They're reading him in White House cabinet meetings. In Ireland, they're begging Dooley to come home for a visit. Have you heard the latest Dooley vaudeville tune? The old man himself doesn't care for fame. The one agreeable thing he says about being a hero to the American people is that it don't last long. And it won't. But where am I in this picture? I am Dooley, but he isn't me. We skewer the crooks all right, and they're still making money hand over fist. So, the cynic in me asks, so, says the poet, what did you do it for if not to make a difference? To which the bartender in me answers, you did it for $10 a week, you big dumb gazebo. McCullough puts it this way. It's a new world out there, Dunne. People don't know what to make of it. Big changes every day. Homelessness, women's rights, immigration, widening gaps between rich and poor. These are issues unique to our time. We're in the business of helping people understand it. Besides, we're on the verge of a new century, what some say will be our century. Now, we beat the Spanish Empire. We have the chance to spread the American way of life around the world. Look what it says in the editorial in today's Tribune. Right here it says, on the verge of a new century, it says, we live in an age of wonders. Never before in the history of the world has such progress been made. Now, what does your friend Dooley think about that? So I carry the question to him. Down Archer Avenue, which leads from the heart of an ugly city to the cabbage fields and rolling mills, to streets paved with wooden planks, to the little shop on the corner with the light on, where he waits for me on the stoop with his newspaper and his usual greeting, Finley, me boy, how's tricks? The world-famous philosopher, archaeologist, historian, economist, political analyst, social observer, and saloon keeper. Finley, me boy, how's tricks? I don't mind if I do. 'Tis duller here than a Republican primary in the 4th Ward. Sure, you're like a ray of sunlight, you are that, even though you don't say much but sit in the corner and write down everything I say. If there's been no company in these parts since Dominic Riley's big gossoon was took up by the police. Now, not the Riley, you know, that lived down by the gas house. He's moved over the 5th Ward, the devil go with him. 'Twas him that broke that mirror with a brick, for and because I said Carey the informant was a Limerick man. Now, this here's the Riley that lived down by the rolling mills. Oh, he was the hell's own hand for sport. But where have you been all these days, man alive? I miss you every year at the annual picnic to free Ireland. The Freedom Picnic, they call it. Well, if Ireland could be freed by a picnic, she'd not only be free today, but an empire. But at least the lads have got the trick of freeing Ireland down to a sensible basis. In the old days, they used to go over with dynamite bombs in their pockets and either got their rollers on them in Cork and blew themselves up, or else they was arrested in Queenstown for disorderly conduct. These days, when we want to smash the Sassenach and return the land of birth to her true place among the nations, we gives a picnic. It costs less, and when a man's done, he can leap aboard a streetcar, go home and sleep it off. I went out last Tuesday, and I suppose I must have freed as many as 8 counties. All the lads was there. Now, the first one I see was Dorgan, you know. Oh, now there's an orator, Finn, that could make the Prince of Wales tremble in his moccasins. I heard him make a speech once that near induced me to take a bomb in my hand and blow up Westminster Cathedral. Are you slaves or are you men, he says. Will you stand idly by, he says. Well, the Sassenach, he says, as the land of Eminent O'Connell and John M. Smith under his heel, he says. Arouse you slaves and despots, he says. Cleared away cowards and traitors, he says. Fa bala, he says. He had the beer privilege at the picnic. And there was Hennessy the plumber. He had the contract on the knock down the baby with a baseball and win a cigar joint. So for the good of the cause, Finn, I knocked down the baby. And as a patriot, I should only wish that the Queen of England and the Prince of Wales should be induced to smoke one of them cigars. The one I got was made out of baled hay and surplus Patriot gunpowder. I thought I was smoking a Roman candle. No, it's the evening edition. Well, have you seen the paper that Yerkes has bought for himself? Oh, he's a poet with a printed word, you know. Hogan says, all he needs is a bald head, whiskers, and principles to be another Horace Greeley. But now I wish I was a newspaper editor. There's a hard job, true, but there's nothing so hard as minding your own business, and an editor never has to do that. But now these days, a newspaper has to be onto as many things as a department store. And so I'd have to be sending words of good cheer to the Tsar of Russia, telling Andrew Carnegie the best way to make steel billets, predicting the winners of the yacht races, settling the strikes, resolving the currency question, partitioning off China, and telling the ladies what kind of hat to wear with a lavender skirt. Just one time I'd like to see a newspaper with this written across the front page. We don't know nothing about it, we don't care, and what business is it to yours anyhow? Well, it's near closing time, Finn, and I've only these few paying customers left, but if you come inside, if you want to hear, I'll tell you what I think about the end of this here war with Spain. And, Finn, where'd he go?